The biggest barrier to adopting AI is trust. And it's all the things that you might imagine. It's concerns over data privacy and data security. It's concerns over how is the AI developed, and is it developed following principles and ethics, and is it societally good, right? But the biggest concern when it comes to trusting AI is, do I trust it to do the job competently?
Welcome back to the Bold Play Podcast. I'm Ryan Prindiville. As this series rolls along, we'll be pulling back the curtain on some of the biggest leaders in business and hear some of their stories of their boldest ventures. This is more than a story, it's a playbook for action. I'm thrilled to be joined here today by the global CTO at Sage, Aaron Harris. Today we'll be exploring Aaron's career path, how he's shaping Sage's global strategy, and including AI and their tech strategy. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be here.
Excited to have you here. It's good to catch up. Hey, Aaron, before we, I like to start and get a little bit of background about you and so forth, and tell a little bit about your personal story too. But before we do that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your view on what you're seeing in today's macro, the business environment, the climate we're in, and some of the trends that you and the Sage team are leaning into related to AI and other tech trends.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're going through pretty unprecedented times right now. I like to tell people that, on the journey to general AI, we've already had the breakthroughs that we need to get there. And it's really just a matter of, more compute power, more people working on the problems, more work on the commercial models. And so it's a really, really exciting time. And if I sort of come back closer to, what are we looking at today? The big things are, first of all, AI agents are real. Yeah. They are coming. We are building them. Others are building them, and they're going to just do all of the routine, repetitive, everyday work that we humans don't want to do anyway. And there's a lot for us to figure out. We've got to figure out, what's that relationship like between the technology and the human. We've got to figure out the commercial models. We've got to figure out, how is it going to shape up the markets. But these are, those are all the things that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. Separately, and this is, not as big of a deal in the U.S., but sort of outside the U.S., there are increasing efforts by governments to drive digital transformation, largely in the form of regulating the way taxes are filed digitally, the way invoices are shared between businesses. And so it's again, it's not a big deal here in the U.S., but it's a big deal globally, and I think it's just a matter of time before it makes its way to the U.S., and that's going to drive a lot of really exciting developments as well.
So I heard a few things there, and then we'll get into it as we continue the conversation. Unprecedented times. I heard a little bit of a theme of pace of change and how people evolve with it. How a little bit around government engagement and what does that mean in terms of these unprecedented times as well. So those are good things for us to explore a little bit further as we dig in. I'd love to transition first though to a little bit about your story as a person and as a leader and so forth. You've had a lot of bold moments throughout your career and points of inflection points personally. We talk about inflection points as in business a lot, but you've been through some interesting times as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about your early days within tech before it was with Sage and kind of your evolution.
Sure. Yeah. I like to joke that I have a very short resume.
Right.
When I finished getting my master's degree, this is in the late 90s, I went to work for Arthur Andersen.
Right.
Some people in the audience will recognize that brand. I think it's super relevant that Arthur Andersen doesn't exist anymore. But at the time, it was, I think it was the most trusted of the big six firms at the time, which is why I chose it. I quickly realized I wasn't a fit. It just wasn't a place for me to really thrive as a person. I met a coworker who had an uncle in Silicon Valley who had this exciting idea to start a accounting software company based in the cloud. Of course, the cloud wasn't really a term then.
Didn't exist.
This
Yeah.
yeah, this is 1999. We were calling them .coms back then. And I just got really excited about this idea. So picked up my family, moved to Silicon Valley, and I became the first full-time developer on the Intact product. Now, Intact is, I think it's a pretty good. If you look at the progression, the story of Intact, it sort of mirrors the progression in the story of Silicon Valley.
Right.
We had some real high highs, some real low lows. We had to save the business a couple times from completely failing. And through those moments, I was able to take on some pretty significant responsibilities in the business. So I essentially led technology and product development at Intact until 2017. We were faced with a decision. Do we take the company public? We had already done all the preparatory work. We were ready to file. Or do we accept an offer by Sage to be acquired? And we ultimately chose to sell the business to Sage. We saw a big opportunity with Sage to take Intact global, to really scale up our efforts, to tap into the expertise that Sage had in large measure. So that was 8 years ago. A little over a year later, they asked me to be the global CTO. So I've been the global CTO for 6.5, going on 7 years now. If you had asked me 8 years ago, would I still be at Sage? I couldn't have imagined that I'd still be here. But it's just an incredibly exciting time to be a CTO and to be the CTO of a company like Sage, where I have access to tremendous resources. I've got tremendous support by the rest of the executive team and the board of directors. If there's a willingness to take bold decisions and do exciting things. And so, I'm here and really loving it.
You actually alluded to a couple of bold decisions along the way here. You talked a little bit about them. I'm curious, one of our prior guests talked a little bit about that decision process and some of the factors that were there around the IPO versus the going private and having a strategic merger. Are there any words of wisdom for maybe people listening that may be going through those same kind of conversations themselves and what you talked about in the boardroom with the leadership about what were some of the factors you might consider?
Sure. I think Intact is a story of longevity. And, really thinking not just about, the future in the terms of 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, but building something that is lasting.
Right.
And, despite the fact that we were growing, 35, 40%, we were, roughly break even. We were cash flow positive to grow the business. So we were about $100 million business at the time. To grow the business the way we really wanted to really achieve the ambition that we wanted for the company,
right,
we knew we would need to partner with somebody that had, much more extensive distribution, much greater access to capital, that already had, go-to-market capabilities outside the U.S.
Global sales force, global distribution, clients willing and able to transition to newer technology, those kind of things. I assume all
massive existing ecosystem. Yeah. And so if your decision is let's build something that is lasting,
right,
it became the right answer to partner up with Sage. One of the things that I'm really, really proud of is that the business has continued to grow. It's 9 or 10 times the size it was when Sage acquired Intact, which just doesn't happen with acquisitions, right? You don't hear stories of that with that level of success.
It's a phenomenal story. You mentioned the move at one point. Made me go stepping back even earlier in your career. What was your biggest kind of life lesson you moved when you came to the Silicon Valley early on? Was there something there that surprised you earlier on?
I was overwhelmed with the optimistic mood,
Yeah.
with the sort of the belief and the energy that you could accomplish anything,
Yeah.
a willingness to not follow the playbook. There's a lot of things we did in the way we built Intact that didn't follow any pattern of any accounting product that existed at the time. And, part of that is we were just young and, there's maybe a little bit of naivety in that, but really what it was, the whole spirit of Silicon Valley gives you the freedom to do things differently, to explore things that maybe haven't been explored, to take risks. And, we had some incredible investors who encouraged that and, reminded us that they were in it for the long game, right? So trying a few things here and there that didn't work was, not just okay, but encouraged.
Does that spirit that you felt then, does it still exist today?
Oh, absolutely. I think that Silicon Valley remains a special place because of that.
Yeah.
And let's be clear. A lot of it is derived from the venture capital world, right? I mean, these organizations exist to place, high risk bets, right? I mean, the whole machine is designed around this, but it also leads to things like, trusting people to make decisions and to move quickly and, to experiment. And you just can't do that in a lower risk world. So I think Silicon Valley continues to exhibit that. But I think that culture has expanded into the tech startup scene, period, right? So it's no longer just a trait in Silicon Valley. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about being the CTO of Sage is it's a very public global company,
Right.
right? It's UK based, and getting a chance to interact with startups in the UK and France and Spain, there is this common thread of positive ambition, willingness to try new things. So it's not just a Silicon Valley thing, but I do describe it as the Silicon Valley culture.
So there's Silicon Valley the place, and then you're describing a Silicon Valley the feeling, or the environment that exists anywhere on the planet as well. That's pretty exciting. I mean, you get a chance to actually experience it even more now that you're part of Sage the last 7-8 years. And what's the most exciting part of that globally now?
Well, when I was the CTO of Intact, Intact was one product, one market,
Right.
largely one competitor. The only real complexity we had was a direct approach to selling as well as a channel approach to selling, and that was it, right? That was the extent of the complexity. So, if you look at the game that you're playing, you only have a few pieces to work with. Now, you can move quickly, right? So that is the advantage of the simplicity that I just described.
Cleaner, simpler strategy.
Yeah. So the world of Sage is global markets, literally hundreds of products. We have between 150 and 200 products in the market. We are in a broad range of categories from, ERP and accounting to manufacturing software. We're big in the construction space, but we've also got, HR, we've got payroll, we've got narrower products that do simple things like time tracking, or treasury, right? So we've got this really broad portfolio. We're competing in a number of global markets. We are serving everybody from, the individual landlord in the UK, all the way up to large public companies. And so, as somebody who's deeply involved in the strategy, having, so many pieces on the board that you can play with, is really invigorating. And so it's just always exciting to me to look at the opportunities and all the resources we have and figure out what are the things we should focus on to keep growing the business.
So the risks and opportunity balance that you're talking about here, like because with that broader complexity come more types of risks and challenges that you're facing as well, right? It's a more complex space, more complex market. What are the two or three biggest kind of risks that you see out there for companies like you that you're thinking about every day?
Well, so the biggest is business model risk.
Yeah.
And this is very much a result of what's happening with AI,
Right.
right? So, there's this whole debate about, is SaaS dead, right? Is
Right.
software as a service dead? And, my firm conviction is that software as a service, as a way of delivering software and as a, real value, not only is going to continue to exist, but will flourish. However, the business model of software as a service, of selling subscriptions of user licenses, maybe with premium modules, that is going to have to change.
Right.
And the reality is that if you look at a product like Intact, the way customers have been getting value from the product has been over time moving more and more towards automated use of the product already. Right. When we talk about, internally, when we talk about this idea that AI agents are going to become, more and more frequently the common user of our product,
Right.
I like to remind other leaders that software has been the primary user of our product for years. If you look at how load is distributed across our servers, the vast majority of the load is through the API. Right? The product being operated by other software. And so this is an existing phenomena that's just now going to accelerate. It's more obvious. But what it means, though, is we've got to really think about our business model. And I think this is true for not only software as a service companies, but if you think about service firms, right? Your models have been going through evolution for some time. Well, now you've got to really question, is time and materials the right model for serving your
100%.
customers? And do you have the right mix of products for serving customers in the way that they now expect to be served?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think we talk about the strategy shifting, the environment shifting. You talked about your quote unquote user base shifting from being human users to AI or bot users to your main integration points. What we used to call integration points on your platform being maybe an AI automated layer of some kind, whatever as well, user, and then we talk about the services around it, the professional services who may be using the product or product set and providing it and managing it and delivering it for your clients as well, being impacted as well. So the ecosystem is under total inflection point, right? And I think so. That's we're seeing that, and it's kind of an existential thing for everyone, for the SaaS companies like you're talking about, as well as professional services companies as well. That would look at it and how do we evolve quick and change and lean into the change, right?
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that the accounting profession and the industry at large will only be more valuable in the future.
Right.
It's just going to look different, right? We track how accounting firms invest in technology, and if you look over the last 5-6 years, their percentage of revenue devoted to technology has grown about 50%. Right, and there are things driving this, like the shortage of talent, and of course there's pressure in the form of higher expectations because of technology to automate. But I think where this really leads to is firms being able to move up the value chain, and supported by technology, provide much more valuable services. Supporting organizations through transactions, providing more robust planning and an analysis of results, risk management. I mean, there's so many things firms can be doing with the support of technology. Now, our job, first and foremost, is to provide the technology that frees up your time to do that stuff.
No doubt.
But ultimately, what we need to do together is build that technology that enables you to deliver those higher value services.
It's the way you said that reflects back to one of my prior conversations on the podcast where we were talking with somebody and we were talking about the idea that SaaS or software as a service may have changed or may have evolved, may not be the same anymore, like you said. But maybe it almost reverses. It becomes services as software, and the two may even evolve closer together or be more linked together than they ever were. And how do we all lean into that together? Is probably the biggest question.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like to say that service organizations are going to become technology organizations. Armanino has a CTO, right? I'm seeing, more and more services organizations appoint chief technology officers. And so, I mean, of course, I'm a CTO, so I'm going to have this view, right?
Yeah, you got to prop it up. I like it.
But you are increasingly going to use technology to provide your services. But I think even more than that, you will develop technology that differentiates you, right? And provides a compelling reason for your customers to choose you over some other firm.
And I think that's the case in all industries. Maybe, and one of the things that we're seeing, and you alluded to it early on in the conversation, was that a point we have not seen before in the growth and in the change of technology and services in our professional careers, probably, and partly because the pace at which technology is changing is faster than we've ever seen before. I'm curious your thoughts on that, if because
Yeah.
you've been through a lot of the big transition points we talked about, but how are you personally and maybe Sage thinking about that pace of change that we're seeing right now?
It is both the most exciting time and the most challenging time to be a CTO.
I won't doubt it at all.
If you look at my role in communicating to our customers and partners in the ecosystem, we've got our product organization, right? That's going to get up and talk to our customers about here's what's on the roadmap, here's what's coming in, 6 months to 12 months, and I can demonstrate it to you, working software. And then my job is to get up and say, okay, that was really cool. Now let me tell you what's going to happen in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. And what's happened over the last 2 years is that sort of gap between CTO and head of product is getting more and more compressed. And I'm getting more and more challenged because, things are moving very fast. Product teams are moving very fast. And frankly, there's a lot of unknowns right now. What comes after agentic AI, right? What is the next wave beyond this? So I guess what it requires is leaders to spend more time. So I spend more time than I ever have in my career just reading, just talking to. I talk to startups more often than I have in the past to see what they're doing, what they're seeing. So you have to devote, I think, more of your time to that horizon scanning.
Right.
You've got to be a bit more open in how you explore. You got to constantly challenge, the conventional wisdom that you hold within yourself. But I think the key to all of it is that you have to constantly test, right, where you are, and it's incredibly exciting. And I will tell you that we've got our partner summits coming up here in a couple of months, and our product teams are going to show such amazingly exciting things. I don't know how I go from that to painting a picture that's even more exciting. It's harder than ever.
Well, that is a common refrain that we're hearing. Harder than ever, but more exciting than ever, scarier than ever, more exciting, or with an eye to the future that people don't expect. That's a pretty common set of challenges or opportunities that we see people talking about too. It's interesting too that you said you're reading more than you ever have, and it seems it's almost a little bit counterintuitive, right? When we say we're talking about agentic AI and changing and replacing a lot of the work, yet as leaders, our ability to stay on top of the trends and to know who's out there, what next startup is inventing something new that we should be using, leveraging, embedding into our services, our platforms, our next generation products is more important than ever. And reading is actually one of the skills that you need to be able to pay attention to that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think having a large language model as a research assistant
Yeah, that helps too.
and a debate partner
Yeah.
is a really constructive part of that process. It enables you to explore paths that you probably wouldn't have considered exploring.
So maybe talk to us about, without sharing any of the product details that you're going to be announcing and so forth in the future. What are some of the themes and trends that you guys are evaluating related to the kind of this pace of change and agentic AI and so forth? What are some of the themes you guys are leaning into?
Well, I mean, I don't need to be secretive about this. There's two big areas in the world of AI. So the first is that we are building agents, right?
Right.
We're building agents that do everything from automate closing the books to providing a more interactive experience around accounts payable with stakeholders. And so there's a lot going on across the whole portfolio of products within Sage, building these agents that are able to operate more autonomously, with less oversight, with more ability to make decisions about how to get things done, with greater access to tools to do things. That is a consistent refrain across the entire business.
That's great.
And so, of course, we're going to talk about that. The other sort of corollary to that is we fully expect our customers and our partners to bring their own agents, into the mix. And so we want to, build the most sort of trusted, capable platform for these third-party agents to do their best work, right? So, this is a big debate, by the way, right now in the technology world for companies like ours. Do we block those agents because we're worried that they're going to take all the value and all the commercial benefit? Or do we sort of accept the inevitable, right, and do our best to become the best sort of home for these agents to do their work? This is, I will admit, an area where we're all kind of waiting to see how it's going to play out. But from my perspective, we have to play both strategies. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to building our own agents, the way we're going to convince our customers to use our agents is we're training our own models, right? We're training our models on content and data that aren't available to the OpenAIs and the Anthropics of the world. We're building them in a way that they're much more efficient and predictable when it comes to accounting and finance related things. And so we have a number of ways that we can create separation when it comes to the very specific needs of agents in our area. But I would be naive and foolish, I think, to not expect third-party agents to enter as well. And we've got to do what we can to make sure that that's a good experience for our customers.
In a way, it's a little bit of that back to the future conversations that we might have even had years ago, closed system versus open system, closed network versus open network, and so it's just, I think it's the same types of conversations in terms of how you're building out the products and how you're thinking about it and so forth. But to your point, the pace at what we know and what we don't know and how that's evolving is faster than it's ever been.
Exactly. Yeah. And to that point, if you look at the ecosystem around Sage, if we weren't sort of open and embracing of companies like Armanino,
right,
not just supporting our customers, but building your own intellectual property,
right,
bringing technology that interacts with Sage products or that leverages Sage products to build more capability, we would be nowhere close to where we are as an organization. And that leads to not just a large business within Sage, but a really impressively large business outside of Sage. And that's the world that you sort of have to think about, not just the insular world
Right.
within your
Inside the
own.
product. Yeah. Enabling the broader ecosystem to move faster together is a key part of that strategy in that case then.
Yep. And you've got to be partnered up on it.
So you said, I have to assume that you're looking at all mechanisms to move faster as well. And again, without sharing anything, you talked about building internally. You talked about partnering with firms. I have to think about, you're looking at, are there things you have to acquire or go faster on as well by keeping an eye on that landscape too, given this pace of change?
Yeah. Acquisitions and strategic partnerships have to be part of the strategy.
Right.
There's only so much we can do in driving innovation ourselves. A big part of what makes a company like Sage successful is our willingness to go acquire the innovators.
Right.
Right. Not just for their products and their innovation, but for the people that have the know-how and have the sort of the culture and the ethos to drive innovation. And so, if you look at some of the breakthroughs that we've brought to the market over the last 7 years while I've been the CTO, a lot of that has come from small acquisitions that maybe didn't make any headlines anywhere, but where we got, a handful of people who really understand a problem, or we got a piece of technology that gave us a year head start on bringing something to market.
A niche, an industry, a segment, a piece of knowledge share, mind share that maybe is going to accelerate the team, together when you have that distribution and capability. Makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting too. You guys are in a lot of segments that maybe are still. It was true 8 years ago, probably when you joined Sage and when you merged in with Sage, but it's still probably true that maybe would be historically kind of the reticent to the advancement of the pace of change that we're talking about here, right? A lot of those industry segments. Do you see the adoption of some of those client segments keeping up with this pace that we're talking about?
I have maybe a contrarian view here.
I love it.
So we all like to talk about, not becoming the Kodak, with the digital camera, right? Not embracing something that might be disruptive, and everybody acts as if the world is plagued, like big companies are plagued by this innovation challenge or by this unwillingness to be disruptive. I disagree. I mean, look at companies like Microsoft and how they've been able to continuously reinvent themselves. There are so many successful companies that have flourished, through multiple generations of technology. That's not to say that there aren't some losers, right, who weren't willing to take the risks. But I just think as a business society, we are a bit more willing to take risks. Now, when the internet arrived and companies like Intact started to bring accounting solutions, in our case, to customers, I thought, in 2-3 years, I would be retired on a desert island because this thing is going to take off.
I love it.
It did not happen at that pace at all, right? There was so much rejection to the whole model of delivering software over the web. And frankly, the accounting industry was, sort of a poster child for this.
Yeah.
So when ChatGPT arrived, going on 3 years ago now, and we started to realize that we were at one of these really important inflection points. I flew out to New York City. I met with the head of AICPA and their head of innovation, and I wanted to look them in the eyes and see how much fear was there, right? And what I found was, contrary to sort of what people might expect, the profession, the industry wanted to embrace this because they see it as a way to move the industry forward to where they really want it to be in the first place, to overcome some of the challenges that the industry has had with, a shortage of trained accountants or problems attracting new people to the profession. And so I've been really pleasantly surprised at how much people are embracing this.
Yeah.
And I think, part of it is the fear of being left behind. But I also think we've learned, right? There aren't 99 Kodaks to every one Microsoft out there.
Yeah, extinction has the fear of extinction does have a little bit of impetus to put behind it, right? Gets people running a little bit in a lot of ways, right? And I think you're seeing that in a lot of industries. I think the question is, are they running the right way, right? Are they running into a bright future? And I think most people see what the opportunity there is and can run towards it. I'd love to segue a little bit in terms of people use the word agent. We talk about agentic AI now, and there's big themes around that. There's big expectations. What does it mean in practice for most users, most industries, maybe?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing that I would say here is that AI is in its behavior is on a continuum.
Right.
There isn't non-agentic AI and agentic AI.
That's why I bring it up, because I think let's
just get
talk
that out of the way.
Yeah.
So the degree to which AI is agentic is its ability to make decisions about how to accomplish a task, its ability to access and harness tools to complete a task, and its ability to do these things without human supervision. Right. So those three things in my mind are a spectrum, right? They're a continuum, but the extent to which the AI behaves that way is the extent to which it's agentic. Right. So an example, right? If you're having a conversation on ChatGPT or Gemini, and as a result of the conversation, it goes out and it does a web search, right? That is exhibiting some agentic behavior, right? It is using a tool that it's been given, in this case, a tool to browse the web, right? It's made a decision on which website to go to or which websites to go to get that information. And so that is exhibiting, characteristics of agentic AI. Going quite a bit further down the spectrum, being able to say to an agent, I want to go to Maine next summer on a camping trip. Go figure out, the best time of the year to go. Make the reservations. Do my meal planning for me. Get on the wait list for the restaurants in town. Right. That is a more extreme example of agentic AI, but they're both agentic to a degree.
I love it, and I think the interesting thing that people don't. I think a lot of our mutual clients and people that we're talking to probably don't have the clarity on what does that mean for their organizations and their operations 18 months from now, meaning who's going to be needed to do what. And I think that's that pace that we're talking about. How do we apply that in the reality of the back office, but the front office as well of many of our clients as well.
So I think every business has a decision to make when it comes to agentic AI. They can leverage agentic AI to drive down costs, to expand margins, to become more profitable, or they can use agentic AI to accelerate growth. And, I am going to be a champion, to anybody who will listen, that the opportunity is to use this technology to accelerate growth, right? There's no reason why we have to go through a massive disruption of jobs and massive layoffs. I get disappointed when I hear about, the hyper-tech companies doing big layoffs, supposedly because they can be so much more efficient now.
Right.
Where is your inspiration to grow faster, right? Where is the opportunity to innovate? Like, why are you not harnessing this talent to do more than you've been able to do. I think it's short-sighted.
Yeah, enable your people and teams and the knowledge that you've built in those people to go and do something to help grow the business through deploying more tools and more capability for them, right?
Exactly.
It's an interesting transition too, because one of the things that I think we've talked about it before, but I'm curious, when we start talking about AI and governance and on that side of it, and kind of the what's your thoughts on guardrails and transparency about how it's used and so forth? We have a lot of clients who are out saying they're going to be leveraging this differently now. This world is going to look different. And they're gonna do it in the core areas that we're providing these services for. What's the thought process that business leaders, founders, CFOs need to be thinking about related to those guardrails and transparency in the use of some of the platforms going forward?
So I guess where I would start with this is assurance will be even more important in the future, right? So the more responsibility we hand off to technology, the more I believe, we need confidence and assurance that, the business is operating within controls, that data is accurate, that we're compliant with the various regulations that we have to adhere to. So I think the whole concept of assurance becomes more valuable, not less valuable in the future. So I would start with that.
Yeah.
What we've learned through our research, and I don't know that we needed to do research to discover this, but the biggest barrier to adopting AI is trust. And it's all the things that you might imagine. It's concerns over data privacy and data security. It's concerns over how is the AI developed, and is it developed following principles and ethics, and is it societally good, right? But the biggest concern when it comes to trusting AI is, do I trust it to do the job competently? Right. So, if my job as the controller of the company is to, issue financial statements on a timely basis, I can have AI do all of that work all day long, but I'm still accountable for the results. And so there has to be a greater degree of trust over the technology. And so if you look, out over the next couple of years with the introduction of agentic AI into the workforce, the single biggest challenge that we have to solve is getting that relationship between the human user, the operator, and the technology, where we've got that right level of AI is allowed to, fulfill its potential, and the human operator feels in control and feels confident that the right things are happening. And I think the whole industry is trying to figure out, what does that experience look like?
Right.
How do I manage these digital workers now? What's the psychology that we have to create in their experience with the product?
It is interesting. I think that is the thing that people probably think about maybe the least right now, but that is probably the most important that's going to come over the next 18 to 24 months. It's that human agentic or human agent interface that says, how do we balance the level to which we provide oversight, we engage, we review, versus we do. And that's going to be the point where probably the biggest shifts actually occur. And I think you're right. We don't probably know where that's going to end up, and it's probably going to go through lots of iterations and continue that pace that we've been talking about along the way. Yeah, I'd love to make a transition here, if you don't mind, and kind of jump into a little closing segment here, if you can. And this is kind of where we talk about leadership in 60 seconds. A little short segment here, and I'll ask you a few questions, rapid fire questions. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, what's the one thing you wish you knew earlier in your career?
I wish that I had had more courage to hire exceptional talent. I hired great people over the years, but there were always a few people that I just didn't feel well, like, why would that person want to come work for me? What do I have to offer?
Oh, wow.
I did learn it. I had a great CEO who instilled that confidence in me, and you get one or two of those, and you learn the lesson, and it's a breakthrough for you when you learn you can hire people that are better at your job than you are.
It's an amazing thing, and we should all learn that early in our career. We all probably, you and I both have pretty gray hair. Like we all probably learned that one a little bit after we had our gray hair, and we wish that's a really good one. We all wish we would have learned earlier, I'm sure. All right, so that's a good segue. What's the one trait every leader must have?
Humility, the self-confidence to not be afraid to demonstrate a lack of understanding, right? Or the need to learn from somebody else, or to admit that a decision was the wrong decision and to learn from it. I think humility is the biggest key to creating a sort of a trusted environment for doing great work.
And if we don't have that, then there's a lot of things that would go the other way for sure. What's one mistake or an easy mistake that leaders often make?
Well, the feeling that they have to be right, or that they have to have answers. One of the smartest people that I've ever worked with over the years was the person who asked the most questions, didn't provide the most answers, right? Somebody who's just fearless about asking questions and sort of demonstrating that perhaps they don't know the answer. As a leader, the natural tendency is that, well, you have to have the answer because you're the leader. That's just not true.
Great advice. Who inspires you most today?
The entrepreneurs and the scientists who are doing the groundbreaking work right now in AI. I thought about this question: is there one person that really inspires me? It's not, right? It's when I have an interaction with a founder, CEO, who has, a breakthrough idea and has the courage to go after it. That's where I draw my inspiration.
There are so many cool ones right now too. Like you said early on the conversation, there's a whole nother wave of exciting scientists and founders and leaders coming through right now. And I think the pace there is increasing faster than ever too. All right, last one. You have any favorite leadership books or podcasts you recommend? You said you're reading more than ever too.
Yeah, so I'll give two books. The first one is a classic. So Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Okay.
I'm always a bit of a cynic when it comes to business books that sort of purport to have the answer. Yeah. Like, if you only adopt this management style or this, strategy framework, you will succeed, right? The Hard Thing About Hard Things essentially says, well, in most cases, it's just hard, right? And doing the hard thing is the answer, right? It's not some brilliant hidden secret that only the gurus can tell you. You just got to do the hard thing. So I think every business leader should read that book. And then more recently, The Geek Way, which it's about the culture of very successful technology companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, right?
Yep.
It's what is it about their culture that enables them to flourish, even through successive iterations or evolutions in technology.
Those are both great recommendations. I appreciate you sharing, and we'll put links to them in as we release the podcast as well. Aaron, I'd like to thank you for the conversation. This was a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of ground, a lot of topics. It's always good to have a conversation with you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening to my ramblings.
Thanks to the audience, and we'll talk to you next time. Appreciate y'all.